I hope you can forgive me. I sound really froggy and really hoarse. I'm having issues with allergies or a cold or something, so I apologize, and I will try to be as clear as I can. But I'm going to make this video pretty short and sweet so that you can at least get the information without me, wanting to rip my throat out. So let's talk about eco-criticism. It first originated in the late 1970s, I believe. The first real documented mention of eco-criticism was in 1978. But it came really to the forefront of literary criticism in the early 90s. So it is a very new theory. It's not one that's necessarily the most popular or done the most frequently, but it is definitely a part of the criticism landscape surrounding literature, and perhaps it'll gain more steam because, as I'm sure most of you have noticed, that there's a lot of eco-driven elements of our culture that are becoming more and more popular. So you can look at this as kind of a cultural trend that is helping a particular literary theory come to, again, the forefront. So there are technically two types of eco-criticism. There's the type that originated in the United States, and then there's one that originated in the United Kingdom. So in the United Kingdom, it's also known as green studies. So for the United States mentality, they focused on the American transcendentalists who, there are a number of them, but the ones that the eco-critics focus on the most are Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller, and Henry David Thoreau. And what they were looking at with these transcendentalists is nature became religion. The transcendentalists didn't like organized religion. They didn't like intellectualism. So they turned to nature as their spiritual guide in life, really. And you can really see that in the transcendentalists. So those who practice eco-criticism, or the United States version, look at nature as being more of a religious or spiritual connection with nature. It's also much more celebratory. It's happy. It's very uplifting and very powerful. So these kind of critics look at nature and how it's portrayed in literature, but specifically in this way, as more of a replacement for religion. And again, it's got a very uplifting and bright tone surrounding nature. So with the United Kingdom, they focused on the British Romantics. And let's see here. So British Romantics include Wordsworth and Coleridge are probably the two that really come to mind for me. There's also Shelley, Lord Byron, William Blake. There are a lot of amazing poets that came out of the Romantic movement. So they didn't necessarily look at nature as a replacement for religion. They didn't look at it in such a spiritual sense, but they looked at nature as they focused a lot on the sublime, on being happy and just being at your fullest. They appreciated aesthetic value. So when looking at nature, you appreciate for what it is and what you see and what you experience. And so they do the same thing in literature. So again, there are these two different types of eco-criticism that are going on at pretty much the same time. And even if you wanted to study literature, you could compare the Transcendentalists to the Romantics. They were at about the same time. So again, there are two different types there. So what is eco-criticism? Very basically, it identifies how nature is represented in literature. That should seem kind of familiar with feminist criticism, looking at how women are represented in literature. So same kind of thing. The focus is on nature. Also, you can look at the relationship between nature and culture. And in some ways, eco-criticism is defined based on how close that nature is to culture. So is it the deep wilderness where no culture is really there, or is it suburban nature, such as a park or something like that? So there are different, I believe it's broken down into 4 different areas, ranging from being very close to culture or people, really civilization, and ranging back for places to being very out of touch with culture. Um, Also, eco-critics look at nature as an actual entity, not as something that is simply created through the use of words and the creation of a story. So they view it as a real living thing, which at first seems like, well, of course it is. It's living and it's breathing, but perhaps that's because we come at it with a very deep appreciation for the creation and for the beautiful world that Heavenly Father has created for us. And we tend to appreciate nature in that respect, in knowing that our world is a gift and that it one day will be um, glorified and resurrected and be celestial in nature. So really, we're all kind of eco-critics, if we share that opinion. So look at literature in the same way. How is that represented? How is nature literally brought to life in literature? Oh, how is nature literally brought to life in literature? Also, the last point I'll make about eco-criticism, it really focuses the reader's attention on what most readers would consider the outside of a story. So eco-criticism really butts heads with the new critics, so formalism, which looks at the form of a poem, the literary elements going on inside of it. Whereas eco-critics tend to look on the margins of the story and put things like setting into the center of their focus, as opposed to leaving it on the outside and just saying, oh, the setting doesn't matter. The setting is just the vehicle through which these written characters are performing their actions and their dialogue. So eco-critics say, no, let's look at the setting. What meaning does the setting bring? Why is it set in a certain way? So eco-criticism is definitely a very interesting way to look at literature. So I hope you enjoy working with it. Again, I so apologize for my voice. I'm going to sign off so you don't have to listen to me much longer. But if you have any questions over any of this, don't hesitate to ask.